Today, I present to you a game that I think is perhaps one of the most tragic I've ever played in World of Warships Legends. It might be familiar to you because it happened on my most recent stream, but I think it's such a good highlight that I wanted to make a YouTube video about it, as I sometimes do with the highlights from my stream. We're playing the Tier 7, I guess you could call it freemium, American battleship Alabama. It's one of the earliest ships in this game to become available for global XP, and I think I've had it since the beginning. But times have changed since the Alabama's debut. There are many more Tier 7 American battleships, ones that I like better, and there's one of the same class of Alabama, the Massachusetts. The difference, though, between the two ships is that the Alabama has much better, and by better I mean much more accurate, main battery guns. Massachusetts does not get to enjoy the same level of accuracy from the main battery, but on the other hand, it has usable secondaries that are very accurate, and you can build them for long range. Same is not true of the Alabama, so if you're the kind of person that is trying to make the decision between whether you'll get the Alabama or the Massachusetts, I guess the question to ask is, what do you think is more valuable? Having better main battery firepower and no secondary firepower to speak of, or the opposite? Not that the Massachusetts has no main battery firepower to speak of, but the accuracy might leave you frustrated, unlike the Alabama. Anyway, we spawn in the center of the map. We're going to head out over to the Alpha flank, which is currently being pursued by a cruiser, a DD, and a battleship. Both the cruiser and destroyer are in the Alpha cap, and they're more than halfway done flipping it. On the other side of the map, that's where things are going to start getting a little bit less great. We've got, I think, two battleships pushing up to the Charlie cap, and things are going to begin going south there quickly. But this battle on our side here is going to take a while to develop, and perhaps it'll be time for a free lesson from the Xarkun School of Kiting. Once again, as I told you yesterday in the very foggy video with the washed out contrast, I don't know how that happened, by the way, sorry for it. This one should not be so washed out. But as I told you yesterday, our graduation rate in the Xarkun School of Kiting has fallen to catastrophic levels, and we need to get more graduates trained in the ancient art of kiting. We're going to push into the Alpha Cap now. We've got 3 ships over here hanging out behind this island. And note to the left of their position is the enemy aircraft carrier, which is USS Lexington. This is one of the reasons, by the way, why I don't think CVs are great for the game, and I don't want this video to be a rant about how bad I think CVs are. I'm sure my thoughts on that are clear. But one thing I don't think I expand enough upon is the positioning you see from these reds. You see how clustered up they are? And you can see it on the blue team too if you look at the minimap near the Charlie cap. We've also got a cruiser and a battleship over there hiding behind an island, plus one lone battleship that's pushed out in front of them, and of course he's sunk because he's pushed into 4 red ships, so he goes down as first blood. But this clustering of ships, both on the red and the blue team, I think is more likely to occur when there are enemy CVs, or just CVs in general in the match. One of the ways that you can quote-unquote counter CVs is by sticking together and pooling your anti-aircraft resources together. That's, I think, why these ships tend to get so clustered up in the presence of CVs. It's much harder for the CVs to break through, 3 AA bubbles than it is 1. However, that incentivizes completely passive gameplay where, for example, these guys are not pushing at all. Even though, right now, I'd say they probably have the advantage. It's just me and this Amalfi. And, well, I say that probably they have the advantage, but you'll have to see how me and this Amalfi perform on this cap. I think the two of us together actually make a great randomly selected team. I have no idea who that Amalfi is, but he's actually going to do a fantastic job in this cap. Anyway, theoretically they have the advantage, but they're not taking it. And I think the reason they're not taking it is because they want to group together and pool their AA resources. The worst thing I think you can do in a game about, good positioning is put all your ships together in the same grid square in order to quote unquote counter one single class that exists in this game and isn't present in every match. What you want to do is spread your ships out to create different angles so that not everybody can defend themselves against your team. They might be able to angle to one of you, but if another one of you is spread out further away, they're less likely to be able to angle to that, and thus you create crossfires. CVs incentivize you to not create crossfires and lead to more passive gameplay. There are people who say that CVs somehow promote aggression, but that is abject nonsense. They punish you for pushing in because they can come at you with their airdropped ordnance, and they incentivize your team and the enemy team to group up into big clusters of ships and cede map control. It's just not great. Anyway, that's all I've got to say about CVs. The enemy CV goes down because inexplicably he decides to push out in front of both me and the Amalfi, and we're able to send him back to port. You'd think that would give the blue team a massive advantage here now that there's no CV, but it doesn't really. Well, we'll see how much it matters by the end of this game. At this point, all that's left on this flank are the ships that are still hiding behind the island. And the reason that we're not going to push straight into them, even though one is a fairly low health Amalfi, is because we've got Peter Bagration over here. And in addition to the Amalfi, we've got Carl Johann. Both the Bagration and the Johann have torpedoes. Johann's, I think, range out to 10 km. Bagration, if I'm not completely mistaken, has 8-kilometer torpedoes. So if a ship's got torpedoes, what are we not going to do? We're not going to push straight into it, because if we do that, then we're going to be giving it an easier time to hit us with its torps. Instead, we're going to push in as far as we feel comfortable, which is right about this point right now. Johann's reversing from behind the island, so we'll take a shot at him. And then we're going to turn around and assume a kiting position. That is, we're going to point our stern at the enemy, and we're going to point our bow towards safety. If we start getting focused by all three ships, we'll increase the distance, preferably to a point where once we stop firing our main battery guns, the enemy ships are outside of our detectability range. That way we can go dark, perhaps deploy a heal, change up our positioning, re-angle, and then go at it again. That's the purpose, I suppose, of the kiting in this scenario. Bagration has reversed himself into an open water position where he's not really able to stand up against the firepower of the Alabama's 16-inch guns. We're able to overmatch his hull in many places, and he's well on his way back to port. He's decided now to go for the safety of that island once more, and I think he's actually going to make it. We've got Carl Johann over there, and so I didn't want to turn fully broadside. Most of the time I think Carl Johann shoot HE, so we might have been fine. But on the off chance he shot AP, we didn't want to get all guns on target for that Bagration. So we let him go, and instead we take advantage of the Carl Johann's broadside, which he is generously giving to us for reasons unknown to me. He's shooting, I think, at the friendly Amalfi, who is posted up behind that island in the cap, and has done well to survive up until this point. He's providing us with some valuable assistance here, if maybe not in terms of overall firepower, at least in terms of providing a distraction to the enemy team so that they'll shoot at him, and he appears to be protecting himself well, so he continues to survive. Of course, I realize I am the battleship, so you would say that I'm the one who has to tank. But you saw what happened there, just being, within 7-8 kilometers of two ships, the Bagration and the Johann. I'm down to 50% HP. This is what happens if you try to push into superior numbers, i.e. 3 enemy ships. Doesn't matter what you are, what class you are, if you're a battleship, cruiser, destroyer, I don't care. If you push into 3 enemy ships and they're all shooting at you, you're not going to be floating for too long. So this is why we change things up. We begin kiting a little bit. Unfortunately, Amalfi, who, as I've said, has done well up until this point to survive, unfortunately, he was sort of stuck in that cap. He didn't really have an avenue for escape, and so eventually they do take him out. But Amagi's on low health, presenting broadside. Bag Ration is likewise on low health, and so is Johann. So hopefully it doesn't take too terribly long to send them to the bottom. Enter the full health Rochester, who I don't know where he's been up until this point, but even he begins to shoot at us. So once again, we find ourselves in a scenario where we've got 4 enemy ships that are going to be firing at us. And so we don't want to push in. We want to clear off the board a little bit before pushing in. Of course, we're also built for concealment on the Alabama. I think I've got Azerlane, New Jersey at the helm. One of her inspirations is certainly Kondo. Not sure on the second, though. Could be Azerlane Sovietsky Rossiya, or it could be something else. I frequently change the build like that. In any case, our detectability range is going to be somewhere in the 12-kilometer range, which is allowing us to go dark right now as this fire burns. I think we deployed the last repair party consumable far too early. I think we should have waited until the fire reached 28, 27 seconds and then deployed the repair party so that we could have gotten full use out of it. As it stands, our final repair party is finished now, but we still got about 17 seconds left on the fire, so we're going to continue to lose HP. At this point, the game is still winnable. It's 3v5. We've still got a CV, so that's got to count for something. The other battleship who's still alive, aside from myself, is the one that survived the Charlie flank. He's in the cap right now attempting to take it, but I'm sure he's spotted by all the remaining red ships over there, and they're going to be able to reset him. Meanwhile, the enemy ships on this side of the map continue their push, and why wouldn't they? They have the advantage, so of course they're going to push and try to retake this cap. But if they continue to show broadside to the USS Alabama, things are not going to go well for them. Carl Johann is taken down to 1 bar of HP, which I think is worth approximately 5,000. He still doesn't appear to have discovered the art of angling, although he did discover the art of going behind islands and blocking our vision. So we're going to have to shoot at Peter Bag Ration now, who has taken this moment to decide to start turning broadside to us for reasons I don't understand, but that's fine. That's enough to get us our first kill of the game. And up until this point, we've done 164,000 damage done. Just like that, it is now a 3v3, and it could very soon become a 3v2, because this Carl Johann's got no HP left. At this point, I'd say our disadvantage is much less acute. If we can take this Carl Johann out, then finally we can turn in and push, because it's just going to be us versus the Rochester. Now, there is an enemy destroyer left too, which is a little bit of a problem, and the friendly battleship has gone down, likely to the enemy destroyer, so the enemy holds 2 caps to our 1. We've still got the CV, which you would think should be an advantage against the destroyer, but look at what the CV's planes are doing. He's got torpedo bombers on the map. They're headed straight for that smoke screen set by the Rochester. And I'm pretty sure this CV is going to go after the Rochester for the duration of this match, which is perhaps not ideal. Rochester is in the Alpha Cap, so, fair enough. The CV is going to go drop him with torps and try to damage him or reset his capture progress. But at this point, with just the destroyer left alive and this CV, the destroyer there, I think, was spotting us momentarily. Not sure exactly what that says about his position, but he was last spotted inside the Bravo cap. And in retrospect, I know what he was doing. We're located now. That's probably the CV. Rochester is perhaps driven out of his position because of the CV's planes, and so he presents broadside to us. We're able to take advantage of that, get a Citadel, get the high caliber medal, and Rochester's on about half HP, but he does have 9 guns that shoot HE, 203 millimeter guns that pen the hull of the Alabama pretty much everywhere, and so only a couple of salvos would be enough to send us back to port. It's crucial that we get the aim right here and we get the kill on this Rochester. That's sort of up to RNGesus in a way, and luckily he comes through for us. Dev strike on the Rochester, 638 points to 590. However, the enemy Schoenberg, a destroyer with German HE, quarter pen, can also pen 32 millimeters of armor. Doesn't do the most damage in the world, but when you've got only 100 HP, well, there you go. The Schoenberg is able to secure the kill on us. It's very unfortunate that he was not taken out prior to that point. I wish the CV had maybe pursued him a little bit more. But ultimately, he's the one that clutches the victory for the red team there, even though we were so very close to winning. We end the game with 2,370 base XP on a loss, 206,000 damage done. And in spite of the result being a loss, I'd say this demonstrates that the Alabama, even though it's an old ship, it's still a pretty good one. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.